become self-managed and they drive. I think Steve, you're going to probably see one tomorrow in terms of, and they drive it. I don't do anything. I'm part of it. I'm also learning from them. So when I go there, I'm just a participant and learning from how to manage the next generation of talent, of which some of these are, frankly, people that I have never managed in my life. So I have to learn as well.
So from an HR perspective, how do you measure the success of that? How do you, if you're not, so you're present as a participant as opposed to HR monitoring and seeing how it's going. What's the kind of the measurements of success?
So clearly it will come through. We do a yearly your feedback survey. So it will come through those kind of results. And to be honest, given where things are going right now, if I maintain the same score as last year, I'm doing very well in terms of your feedback. So
setting expectations.
So we measure through things like your feedback. We also measure through our things like our mobility type thing. So we do a lot of mobilities where we move the talent around. So we actually do track on a monthly basis, and we sit down and actually go, how many people have we moved around? Because a lot of
moving around the office or moving around locations?
Locations, office, everything else. Because a lot of that is a mindset of the managers, allowing their people to move around. So we track that, and then you can start seeing that as the education is happening, we're actually moving more people around, and people are willing to bring and discuss their own people on the table rather than actually forcing them to do things. So we track those kind of things, and obviously we track our retention rates and so forth. So we look at those kind of specific activities as well. The island also started looking at things like diversity. So we started working through diversity from a gender point of view, and also how do you get the locals into senior positions. And interestingly, the next debate they're going to have, which I just sent them an email, have a look at it and saying, should we set up quotas? So they're going to debate and come back. And then the other one that we're talking about is flexible working. How do we do flexible working? So they'll just discuss it and come back and say, this is what we think is the best thing for us. So it's now set up a team where they are, I believe, they're more engaged to drive what they want to see rather than us telling them what they should see.
Hi, I'm Grace from Golden Agri. I just wanted to check, how did you get the club going? Because if, for example, the sentiments are saying that what's in it for me, why would I do it? I could just envision some people would say, I'm doing your job.
So I got a club by first of all empathizing. So I have something called a coffee session where I go at teams of, in Singapore, big town halls don't necessarily work. So I always go exclusive teams of 10 to 20 people. We sit around the table and we discuss informally. And I got to go in by empathizing with them to say, look, I'm also struggling as a manager to work through all these 20-30% additional things that we have to do as a manager. How can we all work together? Because we're all aspiring to learn the same thing. And from a beneficial point of view, whether you're here or in another organization, being a good leader and a good manager can only benefit your career going forward. So I said, look, we're all struggling with this. How can we sort this out? And they all came back and said, look, let us take this away. We'll come back. Of course, you always find there one or two ambassadors who are willing to drive the discussion. And if you identify those ones, I call them, they can spread the word for you. And these are the ones who came forward. And obviously, they always become your talented people. And these are the ones who then said, look, 2 or 3 people came to my office and said, look, we've thought about this. This is what we think. And it's a great idea. And where I come in is a sponsorship, making sure that they feel like you really support them and you can drive it. So I said to them, you've got 30 hours of my time. I actually said 20 hours of my time every 2 months. Whatever you need, just block it out, and then I'll give you all the commitment for that. So they feel like the commitment is there to be able to get things going, and then they got it going. Now it's been rolled out. That's just one concept, but it's more thinking of practically, especially in Singapore environment, how you deal with that kind of population that we have.
Have you been able to measure yet whether you're getting traction in your engagement or in your retention?
Yeah, what we measure today, absolutely. But part of that is a factor of probably where the industry is. But the other part, which I'm more interested in, is are they managing people properly? Because I can see that. So what we do is we do performance assurance around objective setting and mid-year reviews and so forth. So actually, every time people do their performance reviews and so forth, we actually get a team of I get about 6 or 7 of randomly from the team, and we actually look at it, and you can see consistently that the quality is getting better through that. And I can only think that it's only because they actually sit down and discuss how to manage difficult decisions and all that kind of stuff. And I can see the quality. It's not there yet, but I can see the quality getting better in terms of how they're managing people. But there's still some way to go in terms of, because what we have is technical people who are managing people, down the dressing down yourself.
I think we really hit a nail about technical people. One of the challenges that we have is really people tend to just promote people who are technical for years, never really had managerial experience. So that's one of the challenges that we have. So we kind of like put in a bit more, parameters around promoting these people. So we want to make sure we expose them to different things before we do that. That's one form of retention for us as a strategy. The 9 box is also the other one that we do. And the other thing that I like about what you said is actually through your activities, you can actually survey some of the key talents that you really wanted to groom them any further, right? So one thing we did was really empowering them with mentoring program and said, you guys are ready, pretty much there. And every manager should be a mentor to somebody else. That is one way that we actually figure out was relatively good for us because we realized that, in Visa, a lot of people are very technical where they came from, a lot of good experiences from very good organizations. But when they come to Visa, it was highly matrix organization, growing in a very different space, kind of like technology and financial. So that is one thing that we struggle. Actually, we have a lot of people leaving us within the first year. So we really need to make sure that we are actually training our managers just to make sure that they actually, be the buddies and mentors to these people. Then we have sustainability as well.
One of the great things that you're doing and that the literature will say on mentoring and coaching programs is that the ones that work best are the ones where there's the reverse relationship going. So the mentor and the mentee, or the coach and the coachee, have an exchange and see that they can learn from each other, and that those relationships become stronger and last longer, and people get more value from them than the top to the bottom. The 9x3 or the 3x3, the 9-box grid. I'd be really interested to know, because I've had my own experience with this and read a lot about it as well. Is typically the easier part to measure is performance, because we're all pretty good at measuring performance because you can get quantitative data around performance, but opinions tend to shape the potential side of it, and the opinions are very divergent. And so I'm just wondering whether anybody is using a 9x3 where you're measuring potential. You measure potential. How do you measure it?
It's not a science. So first of all, you need to acknowledge that it's just not a science to it. It's because it's so matrix organization, we determine that there are a few factors that we use that we'll definitely do, and those things are important to us. So for instance, executive demeanor is one thing that is important for us. So we actually determine like 4 or 5 factors. And what we'll do is we'll work with the function heads as well as the country managers, because most of them cover Asia Pacific, Central Europe, Middle East, and get to a sort of alignment. When you actually flesh out the 9 box with potential and performance, they will be always up for debates. So which is great. We want them to debate about it. So at the end of the day, whoever who is on the 8, 9, 6 are the ones that we all confirm are great, right? That's exactly the dialogue that we wanted to. And then what we do is we put them into programs like what you guys are doing, but not in that scale, to basically flesh them out in some of the regional projects that we do. At the end of the day, we will be very sure who is the one who can raise above the bar. And those are the people that will spend a lot more effort doing, focusing on that. The rest, what we do is we develop them further, make them as managers or, ambassadors of something else, and see whether they are mobile, and so they can move around the region as well. So that's how we use those programs to actually survey some of the topics.
I think one of the challenges that we're having from Baker McKenzie, a law firm, and we have sort of career conversations, and a lot of the younger generation, they just don't want to progress. They don't want to become partner. They pretty much just say, why would I? I don't want to put the hours in. I earn good money doing what I'm doing.
It's interesting you said. I was reading an article in Time magazine recently. I think it's the latest Time magazine, and it's talking about the younger generation now. None of them want to be CEOs. They want to be the PAs of the CEOs. So the aspiration is not to get to the senior leadership anymore, which is interesting what you're talking about. It's things that recent Time magazine, which is out.
It's just shifting my whole sort of perception. Coming from the UK, we had high performers and kind of all these different talent management strategies, and here you sort of have at each level, progression and making sure that you do the management training before you promote them. And most of them just aren't interested. It's really, really tough.
It's interesting. Again, that sort of the perception that being a manager is not an attractive.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying, you know, it's. I have people who are standing down from a role as a team leader, and then you talk to people in their team, the person who's their backup, the other person you think they've been identified, they're in the top three, the big three boxes, and you say, so you know, would you maybe consider a team leader role in the future? And they just say, well, no, I sit next to Steph, and I see
Why would I want that?
what she goes through every day. And frankly, being the backup is the perfect position because I've got my
I'm not exposed.
And go, right, Steph, I'll see you tomorrow, and you know, hope everything gets sorted. So there is that. How can we make a team leader position, a manager position, seem attractive, and then it's something that people aspire to? Because certainly there's an issue with at Bloomberg that in certain departments, and it does come, that aspiration and the lack of that comes directly from the senior managers, and you can see it. You follow the track up, and you go, okay, that makes sense, and there's certain patterns, and so then you say, but how is it? And I'm not new to Bloomberg, but I'm new to Asia. I'm sitting there going, how has this person been in this role for this long in a management position, and everyone's talking about the problems, but we're still doing nothing about it? And that goes back to the fact that they are great at their job. They're great at their day-to-day job as on the technical side. They're a brilliant editor. They're a brilliant customer support person, and that's why that's ultimately they're still rated very highly. They're one of the top performers, but they are bad people managers. And
I don't know. I think the profile of the people manager, and I recruit predominantly in banking, and I've been doing that now for too long. It's changed significantly, especially in Singapore, because I think culturally in Singapore, if you're going to be a people manager in any industry, you've got to accept the fact that you'll make decisions sometimes and they'll be wrong. Now, in Singapore, there's a real stigma associated with that, because you're brought up and you're trained that you're told that if you're not getting 90% in your exams, you're failing. And I've got staff who have got children and they take time off because the child's got an exam and the kid's 8. And I'm like, oh my God, that pressure of being, but that's culturally instilled. So if we're getting those people out of university and after a couple of years at work, and then they're promoted and become an AVP, and then they start getting things wrong, they're thinking that they're failing. So then it's up to the manager to be, and it comes into that mentoring. It's okay to be wrong. And I have to constantly say that to some of my people managers. It's fine to be wrong sometimes. You will be wrong sometimes. And if you're not, you're probably not doing your job. You're probably not pushing the boundaries enough. Because, Nicola, the point you just made, it's about, there's a lot of pressure being a manager, and you feel that pressure about being right all the time. And that's, you've got to accept the fact that that's, you're not going to be right. Sometimes people will be upset, and that's part of the job.
And it's just fun.
Yeah, but that's not something you can learn overnight. It takes time for that to become comfortable with that, and that can take years. Some people are cool with it. That's why I think the definition of a good manager, yes, you've got to have some technical skills and experience, but secondly, you've got to be very resilient, and you've got to be cool with being wrong and all these other things that culturally here we're told, no, that's not right. That's you're not. If you're doing that, that's wrong. You're failing.
And I think it's also critical to be a little, have a little empathy. I have been lucky with a couple of my own managers. Just a simple touch, and having a connect call with your employees once, with your direct employees maybe once in a month, or like when I joined, I had a connect call every week to ensure I'm settling in, and that I'm comfortable, I understand the environment, So, and that's something now we go back and educate our managers, saying, when people join, please take out that time and spend that 1 hour a week with them. That's critical for them to feel valued, and it's very critical to then help them retain. That's critical.
It's definitely the softer skills.
An example, like for myself, before I was promoted as a people manager, my manager asked myself, do you have children? You see them grow, you invest time in them, you nurture them. Do you enjoy that? I said, yes, I enjoy that. Then she said, yes, then you enjoy the role of a people manager. Because you really need to, this is addition to whatever else you've been doing your normal day job. So you really need to, nurture your people. And another thing which I'd like to share with IBM, what we do is when we promote people to people managers, they have to go through a process. So they have to fill up a questionnaire, what they think about themselves, how good they are, and there are certain questions about how good they will be able to manage teams. And then they have an interview process based on the behavioral-based structured interview techniques. And then they also they have to fill up this HDMI questionnaire, which will see how good they will be able to perform in future. So based on these three scores of their personal assessment, the interview, and the HDMI score, then we will decide if these people are ready to be people managers. So there's nothing to do with the technical skills. They might be super good, but what their potential are to be people managers. So that's what we do to identify people managers.
Definitely, the more elements that you can add into the assessment process of potential, the less it's about a debate, and the more data you actually have to then help the person succeed. One of the really tricky parts, Craig, about managing people who are high performers, and especially those who are high potential high performers, is that their profile is that they're used to succeeding. So as they've come through school and into the workforce, and they have a success profile. They have a track record of succeeding, winning, much more often than failing. And in fact, Andrew and I were just having this discussion earlier this morning that one of the characteristics of high potentials is that they tend to get to quite senior levels in their career, like mid to senior management, before they have their first serious failure. And that what happens then is a crisis. So where ordinary people have crisis points all along the way, throughout school, throughout their life, because they fail, they get things wrong, and they learn to cope with failure. High potentials and tend to get to middle to senior management, have a failure, and then it either has one of two outcomes. They completely collapse under their own failure, or they get set back a really long way. They have to dig really deep and figure out, in fact, who they truly are, what is core to who they are, because they have to come up with a new answer, and then they actually go from strength to strength. But having assessed profiles and knowing what is likely to happen, where the person's fundamental strengths lie, and also where they're just not as strong, you can help to predict where those crises may occur and cushion them for them along the way, and help them when they hit them. So it's one of the really important pieces, and I've been involved in organisations, including Hudson, that have done the 9x3 with and without assessments, and it is, as long as you follow through, having done the assessments, there's no point in doing them because it's a big investment. There's no point in doing them if you don't then use them. But if you really use them to help the person in their career, they can be extremely helpful in identifying potential, but also coaching them through to be more likely to be successful, and coaching them through crises as well, and putting the mechanisms around them that when they hit a crisis, they've got a coach, they've got a mentor, they've got tools to kind of help them through it. So that would be one of the key things that I would say. Obviously, IBM is doing it.
Sometimes we think that we're doing too much.
Well, and it seems that way, right? It does seem that way. And I've been there and I've seen it. It seems like it's a lot of time, it's a lot of cost to do that kind of program. But if you save one person, that's probably worth every bit of the cost of that investment.
It's also how you're preparing people to be. Because once you've identified that there are potential, and that they demonstrate the potential skill set. And one thing, it happened to me. I was literally asked one day, "How do you feel about leading a team?" Back when I was in London, I was like, "Well, yeah, no, potentially really up for it. Would love to talk more about it." And literally a week later, they said, "Right, so going on for a discussion last week, we decided we'd like to put you into a team leader role." I then spent the next 6 months in the team leader role, learning how to manage people in the role.
Yeah,
that's
same.
And it happens so much, happens all over the place, and you think, well, we need to spend some time with these guys before they move into the role, and explain to them, what is expected of you, how are we going to manage your performance as a team leader,
Yeah, the problem we have is we have a real lack of role models within the senior leadership team. So we're sort of trying to start right the way from our trainees with, coaching and mentoring as soon as they've left university, right, we'll get you on board now. And then you've got partners saying, yeah, but I need to scold him. It's like, I've not heard that word since Victorian era. They're talking about scolding people. It's really difficult to sort of get the two-way communication for the lead. The leaders just don't understand this, where the new trainees are coming from. Why don't they want to be partner? Because they're burning out after exactly 3 or 4 years. They're the top performers at NUS. They've got, they've been to every best school. They've had every opportunity. They come into a law firm 2 or 3 years. They're in cotton wool. By year 3 or 4, they've got responsibility, a little bit of autonomy, and they either leave or they burn and go in house, whatever. But the partners can't then see the support that they need to be giving to move them into that next level. And we just have that dropout at that rate.
Another thing that at IBM we do is, as soon as a person is promoted to a people manager, they are supposed to go through a mandatory 3-day training, which is called a basic blue. The blue means IBMers. So basic blue training, and this training, it definitely goes through a lot of programs, a lot of tools and tricks. And another thing which personally I thought is quite useful is there's a 4-brain model, 4 side, left, upper left, and lower left, and talk about this.
Conscious.
So so I think that's a good introduction to the program, and it starts with this concept. People can think about, and they can be very good analytically. Some people are very HR oriented, soft skills good. So I think we have this program which actually helps the new managers take on the role head on.
But how do you get the buy-in from it? I mean, the thing is, the buy-in from the leadership team. We tried to run a 1-day program, and they said, no, do it on a Saturday. We're at that stage where if we want to run something for a day, they don't want them out of the office for that time.
Sometimes I think being a globally integrated organization, they are definitely help. There are strong points or there are positives to it, because these are global initiatives, and there's no way a manager can say no.
IBM is very strong. I started my graduate program at IBM. And I thought it was a luxury position to be in. There was a people manager and there was a technical manager, and your people manager only manages people.
Yes.
And it's a functional manager. So it was almost like watching an England football manager negotiating with a club manager. The people managers, all they focus about is your career, and the technical guy wants you to earn money for the organization. So there's always have to broker with a technical guy. But they have an agreement that, you will do 8 days of training in a year or whatever it is. And that agreement is there. They block it out. And so it wasn't like a debate. It was like, this is what you're going to do, and it's planned out. And it was actually quite fantastic.
For this year, our CEO has announced that each and every IBMer needs to invest